on three. Ready? Set. Come on. Hunt two. Let's draw.
Eastern College Football Preview 1979. The Mizlou Television Network takes an in-depth look at the top teams in the East and their prospects. Eastern College Football Preview is brought to you by the F&M Schaefer Brewing Company, brewers of Schaefer beer. Come into the Schaefer Circle. Hello again, everyone. I'm Howard David in Mizlou Television Network Control. For the past few seasons, Penn State and Pittsburgh have dominated Eastern football, and then came everybody else. Last year, the Nittany Lions came about that far away from winning a national championship before losing to Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. Pittsburgh, Rutgers, and Navy all went to bowl games last year representing the East. That may very well happen again. Temple went to Japan last year to play Boston College in the Japan Bowl. And right now, Don Tollefson of Mizlou Television Network is standing by in Philadelphia with head coach Wayne Harden of the Owls.
Howard, Temple has never gotten the publicity of a Penn State or a Pitt, but over the last couple of years, the Temple Owls always seem to scare the dickens out of the Panthers and the Nittany Lions and all the big-name teams in the East. Do you think you're just a couple of players away from being over the hill and beating those teams and being back in the top 20 like you were a couple of years ago, Wayne?
Well, you got to be lucky in this business. There's no question about that. Our kids practice hard. They work hard. I think we get the most out of them, and they give everything they've got. And if we get the right bounce of the ball, maybe it'll happen.
Does it burn you a little bit, though, that when people talk about Eastern football, it's by and large Pitt and Penn State every year?
No, I don't think so. I think we have to earn our dues. We certainly have come from nowhere to knocking on the door, and I don't think we deserve anything until we get the job done.
The 1979 Owls on offense, who do you have coming back? What are your big needs?
Well, we lost a few people on offense, but I think we can replace everyone, possibly except our running backs. And Mark Bright certainly we thought was a first-teamer last year, and he will be there. But our tailback position is up for grabs, and it possibly could be a freshman stepping in there. Other than that, I think we're going to be all right offensively. And defensively, we return most everyone. And, of course, Colin McCarty, Mike Curcio, Bruce Gordon returning should give our defense the best we've ever had here.
Is it a size defense or a finesse defense or a combination of both?
It's pretty much a combination of both. The one thing that we've been able to accomplish over the past few years is that we don't think we're going to play anybody that's stronger than we are. We're not a big team by height, 6'4", 6'5", but we're a strong team. Over 60% of our squad benches over 300 pounds, and when we first got here, no one could. And now we're getting to the point where we're getting a little speed and a little finesse with it.
And Coach Harden, you're out there bench pressing with them too, right?
Hardly, not hardly.
One area Wayne Harden does not have to worry about in 1979 is his punting game, because in Casey Murphy, the Owls probably have not only the best punter in the East, but in many people's estimation, the best punter in America. And Case, we all know that punting is a very mental thing to begin with. Does all that preseason publicity put a lot of extra pressure on you?
Not really, Don. You know, I just feel that if I just go out there and do my job, you know, everything's just going to fall into place there.
The last couple of years, people in pro football have been saying more and more that special teams are the key to victory. That's becoming more and more true in college ball as well, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. You know, people got to realize that the kicking game is 1/3 of the game, you know, and just as an offense or a defensive team. So, you know, if everyone does their job, you know, you'll find out that special teams can win more games than the offense and defense.
When people talk about punters, a lot of times they say, this kid can really boom the ball. But you feel that in addition to the length of a kick, you got to worry about hang time, positioning. There's a lot of finesse involved in punting.
For sure. You know, you try to have the best position of the ball. You know, you want to have very good control and everything, and you know, you just can't go out there and just start kicking the ball any way you want. You want to get the guy back there guessing how you're going to kick the ball.
So there are a lot of times when you don't want to put the full leg into a punt.
Oh, for sure. You know, sometimes your ball's going to be on the 40-yard line, so you're going to have to angle it out. You know, people do go for average and they put it in the end zone, you know, because they like that average. But I feel, you know, that if you kick it out inside the 10, you're doing just as good a job as any. Okay.
Temple was 7-3-1 last year, and it looks like head coach Wayne Harden would like to better that mark in 1979. The Pitt Panthers coming up on our Eastern College Football Preview right after we pause for these messages.
This man belongs to a very special circle, the Schaefer Circle. Because George Blanda knew that to become the greatest scorer in the history of the game meant learning to keep your head when 11 other men want to tear it off. But most of all, being great meant being able to kick that football exactly where you want it. Every time. Time after time. At Schaefer, we brew our beer to taste great every time. Beer after ice-cold beer. That's what makes Schaefer the one beer to have when you're having more than one. Don't you deserve a beer that good?
So come into the Schaefer Circle.
Head coach Jackie Sherrill at Pittsburgh won 17 ball games over the last 2 seasons, more than any other coach in Pitt history in a 2-year period. Went to the Tangerine Bowl last year with the Panthers. This year they appear to be bowl-bound once again. WPGH's Stan Savran is following the Panthers.
6 years ago, although they did not know it then, the University of Pittsburgh football program was about to embark on a new era. A young man named Johnny Majors came to town and in 3 years built himself a national championship football team. A young member of his staff was Jackie Sherrill, now the head coach. Going back those 6 years ago, Pitt football fans would have been more than happy with a better than .500 season. That no longer is good enough. Jackie Sherrill knows it. That may be the cloud over the silver lining.
So the pressure is there, and it will always be. It will always be there on teams that are winning. That's the name of the game. But one big factor that's a plus is now that people care. And you know, when people don't care, they don't care what happens regardless. But now they care. They're interested.
This year, the Pitt offense has changed from the veer to an I. And as all offenses are, it revolves around the quarterback named Rick Tricano. Tricano primarily was a running quarterback. This year, he'll be more of a pro-type quarterback.
Well, I think it's made him a better quarterback. Right now he's lighter than he has been. He came into camp at 185. He's thrown the ball extremely well, and he's a much better quarterback. I was kidding him the other day. I said, you know, Ricky, if you were this good last year, we might have been 12-0 instead of 8-4.
Rick, the Pitt Panthers this year have changed their offense from a veer to an I. How does that affect Rick Tricano?
Well, I really like it better than the veer. I'm the type of drop-back quarterback. I like to sit back and hand off and watch a little bit, see what's developing out there. At the veer, you never see you running back. You're always, just reading holes and a lot of options. And get away from that in the eye.
When fans think of University of Pittsburgh football teams, they often think of offensive stars such as Tony Dorsett, Matt Cavanaugh, Gordon Jones. But defense has always been a hallmark of this football team, and they are returning an All-American defensive end, Hugh Green. He'll spearhead that defense.
Well, there's no question Hugh Green is the best football player in that position there is in the country, period. I mean, but there's so much that goes into a great football player. How he handles himself outside the football field, off the football field, how he handles his teammates, how he handles the press. He's got abilities and amenities around him that enable him to be, a very charismatic guy. And when he's on the field, his presence on the field makes our defense just completely different. And he doesn't even have to play it down, but they just play harder. And that's his asset to our football team is what he gives us, not only on the football field, which he's the best in his position, but what he gives us off.
Realistically, Hugh, how good can this '79 Pitt team be? Realistically, what do you look for from this team?
We look for 10-1, 11-0. You like to say you want to go undefeated, right? But you never know. I like to say, like 11-1, 10-2, maybe will get us into a big bowl.
Realistically, Jack, what do you expect from this football team? What kind of season do you look for realistically?
Well, I think we have a football team that can certainly, hopefully, be as good as last year. And if the ball bounces in the right way, then we could gel into being a little better. I think that we're going to be a more balanced football team, certainly, a team that will be able to run and throw the football. Defensively, I think we'll be a very aggressive football team.
Coach Sherrill, Hugh Green, and Rick Tricano are not being overly optimistic when they talk about a 10-1 record and a major bowl bid, for two reasons. Number one, there is an awful lot of talent assembled here, and secondly, their schedule is not exactly replete with tough tests. This football team could compile an excellent record and end up in a major bowl on January 1st. From the University of Pittsburgh football camp, this is Stan Savran.
While things have gone very well for the Pitt Panthers in recent years, they've gone in the other direction for Princeton University. They've not had a winning football team since 1970, but that could change. Head coach Frank Navarro has every reason to be optimistic. He may have one of the best backs in the East in Chris Chrissy. Here's Don Tollefson in Tigertown.
We are at the beautiful campus of Princeton University in Princeton, New Jersey, with head football coach Frank Navarro. And Frank, we were just talking a little while ago about a young man you have coming back to the Princeton Tigers this year, running back Chris Chrissy, who is really an exceptional athlete, not just an exceptional Ivy League athlete.
That's very true, Don. He can do a number of things. He can run, he can catch, and he's a smart ball player.
I was looking at his statistics and his overall yardage when you throw in pass receptions, returns on kicks and punts. He's an all-around offensive threat then.
That's right, Don. He was recruited as a receiver. He hadn't played much halfback before last year. In the first 3 games, his statistics were not impressive, but the last 6, he did the job for us.
Princeton, as all Ivy schools, puts a lot of emphasis upon academic excellence.
True.
But you as a football coach believe that the kids studying and improving their minds is very important to making them better football players.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. If a guy is earnest in what he's doing in the classroom, he's a prideful man, and he's going to do well on the football field.
Where did the Ivy stand in terms of being able to recruit the top football players on the East Coast year in and year out?
The largest difficulty and the most noticeable difficulty we have in the Ivy League is the financial aid package. When a lad is a good student and he can go to Stanford or Cal or some of the other institutions like Vanderbilt or Duke and get a full ride, that means approximately $8,700 a year to us. Then he has the choice of either coming here and paying his way or getting some aid if he needs it, or going to a place like Duke and getting a full ride. And that's our obstacle. We bring great athletes in to look at the campus, and then they have to make that choice, whether they want to come here and be on a need scholarship or go to a grant school.
And of course, the need scholarship requirement is something that all the Ivy schools have in effect.
That's true. There's no doubt about that. All of the Ivy schools and most of the Division III schools.
Let's talk about the rest of the Princeton Tigers for 1979. Are you concerned about your offense more than your defense, or what kinds of things are on your mind right now?
Don, this is our second season, our being the coach's second season with the Princeton Tigers, and we're feeling a lot better this year than we did last year at this time. We do lose our offensive line, the 5 interior people. But last year when we came into camp, we didn't have a quarterback that had any experience. We had one running back who was injured at the beginning of the season and didn't have any proven receivers. This year, we come back with 2 quarterbacks, Reynolds and Barrett. We come back with Chrissy and 2 outstanding freshman halfbacks, Van Pelt from Washington and Neary from New York. And we come back with 5 capable receivers, so we're feeling a little better about our offense.
One final question, Frank. You open up with Dartmouth, Rutgers, and Brown, 2 of those 3 games on the road. You must feel that the Marquette side made up your schedule, huh?
We're in the chute, and we're going to have to come out fast. But this is a kind of adversity a team has to learn to overcome if they want to be the best in the league. And we're anxious to play Dartmouth, who we ended up with here last year, and they beat us 28-21.
Good. Thank you.
Princeton could make a whole lot of noise in the Ivy League race this year, or maybe just be a spoiler. We'll have to wait and find out. The Wildcats of Villanova, coming up next on our Eastern College Football Preview.
I told
told you I don't want you living with roaches. Now I'm going to show you how to kill roaches where you don't want to spray, like around food and dishes. Get yourself decon roach traps. No poisons and no spraying. Roaches get trapped inside and wham, they're dead. When the trap's filled, throw it out. Power, but no poison. I think they're beautiful, especially since your picture's on the box. Decon roach traps, more power to you.
Foot odor. Get odor eaters. Odor eaters.
Odor Eaters, billions of particles of activated charcoal blended into comfortable, cushion-soft insoles. They absorb perspiration and destroy odor for 3 months. I got the Odor Eaters, kid.
Good boy, good boy.
Odor Eaters, regular for street shoes, super tough for sport and work shoes.
Get odor eaters, odor eaters.
I'm sure you can appreciate the fact that it's virtually impossible to visit each and every training camp on the East Coast in just a one-hour show. But we managed to go to the training camp of the Villanova Wildcats in between their two-a-day sessions in the cafeteria. And naturally, Don Tollefson was in his natural habitat, eating.
Wherever you find college football, you find food, lots and lots of foods. That is especially true here at Villanova, where they have two-a-day workouts before the regular season begins. With me, Villanova tight end Paul Colombian. Paul, I can't believe that is the only food you're going to eat today.
I'll probably go back and get in it some seconds.
Or go on for thirds towards the whole bit. Villanova runs a wishbone offense. The tight end is counted upon to do a lot of blocking. Is it hard to be a blocker and a pass receiver?
Not really. I think it's part of the game. Like, you got to be able to do both really well to be a good tight end.
For many years in professional football, tight ends were kind of anonymous. Then all of a sudden you had Dave Caspers, Raymond Chesters. Do you think people realize how important a tight end is to an offense this day?
I think more so. Like as you said, with Casper coming into the NFL, I think tight end plays an integral part of the offense. Being a pass receiver, you know, being counted on for third down in short situations, for blocking, and then third down and long for pass receiving.
Among guys here at Villanova, weight training is obviously important. How much work do you guys do with the weights?
About 3 times a week, like maybe 2 or 2.5 hours in the weight room. Some guys even more, but for myself, just 3 times a week I would lift.
Thank you, Paul. As I mentioned, Villanova runs a wishbone offense, and this year head coach Dick Bettison traveled to Tuscaloosa, Alabama to learn some new innovations for the Villanova wishbone.
Well, Don, you know, we went down there, of course, Alabama being one of the #1 teams in the country and running the wishbone, and we felt that we needed some basic philosophy behind it. Not so much what you see, but why. And talking to their staff, excuse me, and Coach Bryant, you know, you do get a feeling of what they're trying to accomplish with the wishbone, and that is to get a better balance between their passing and running. And with the bone itself, just sitting right in the wishbone, it's a very difficult formation to throw from. You're going to throw your play-action passes from it, and I think you can be very successful because of the run that comes off of it. But to successfully throw the ball, you have to be willing to break the bone.
Villanova as a team does not face that many wishbones in the teams that it plays. Do you think that your defense has trouble sometimes because you face the wishbone so much in practice?
It's always a problem. You know, I don't care what formation you're running, your defensive people are going to be more attuned to that. You go against an I team or you go against a Veer team day in and day out, and this is what you're going to be accustomed to seeing. And you face another offense, they come in with the dollar wing T, for instance, and all of a sudden it's different. It's changed, and your kids' reactions are different. I think our defensive unit, by and large, is, you know, at a disadvantage seeing the wishbone all the time. And the reads that we get from the offense, and they get a completely different perspective when they have to go against Maryland, for instance, who's going to come at you with that power eye and just try to knock you back. So, you know, it is a disadvantage for our defensive people.
I think once again this year you were able to recruit some local linemen who were recruited by big schools elsewhere, like Notre Dame. That's got to be a real feather in your cap to get some of those kids who could go to a Notre Dame.
Well, you know, you're always after the best kids you can, and, you know, up until now, we really haven't had great success recruiting against the big people, and, you know, I think if you look at it realistically, you can understand why. Certainly, Penn State and Notre Dame coming in with the idea that their kids are going to go to a bowl is going to be, you know, very important to the recruitment of those kids. But we have certain things, too. You know, the school with its academics and the nearness of the closeness of families and things like that. And Steve Sugden, for one. Steve was offered at Notre Dame, and we were very, very fortunate to get him, and he's going to be a great player for us.
1979 Villanova football, what are the keys for Coach Dick Bettison and his staff?
Oh, I guess injury. You know, I think everybody in the country say the same thing, but I think our first units are really tough. I think they've worked really hard. They've come along. We've made great progress in our defense as far as pursuit and our overall team quickness, which we lacked before and which Clemson showed us that we certainly needed improvement in. Offensively, I think we're young. I think they're going to gel. I think our offense is going to move the ball. And as Lou Holtz once said, I pray to God it's forward. But I think injury. I think if we can stay relatively injury-free and keep our frontline players in the contest, I think we stand a damn good chance.
Thank you, Dick. There is one special rule here in Wildcat country, and that is that if you sit at a Villanova training table, you must wear a Villanova football hat. So I'm going to put this on before Bettison takes my life. Let's get back to Howard David at Mizlou Network Control in New York.
You gotta love that hat on, Donnie, I'll tell you. At Storrs, Connecticut, the Huskies of Connecticut face Army, Navy, and Yale in their first 3 encounters, all on the road. Dave Smith of WFSB in Hartford, Connecticut, has the inside track on the Huskies.
The key word in the Yukon camp this summer is enthusiasm, and rightfully so. 2 years ago, Walt Nadzak's first year as head coach here at Storrs, the team won but 1 game. A year ago, Yukon won 4 games and was most competitive in the games they lost. Coach Walt Nadzak assumed a tough task when he came to Storrs after a successful stay at Juniata College in Pennsylvania. The football program was on unsteady legs. A massive recruiting job was in order, so Nadzak and staff went to work. The recruiting effort brought some fine athletes to Storrs. Many saw plenty of action in last year's 4-7 season. Last year's freshmen apparently are going to have to carry the load in 1979.
We're going to probably start 11 sophomores. Now, a lot of people think that's extremely young, but to us, that's experience. And, you know, that's kind of a happy point for us because they're 11 strong sophomores. Our strength right now is probably in our secondary and our linebacking. We have an excellent core of linebackers. It'll make up for some of the losses we had up front defensively. Our offensive line right now is starting to shape up and could be a strength before the middle of the season, but we just lack depth there. Running back situation, if we stay healthy, is solid with James and Jordan and Addison and Ingram and Marcus. And at quarterback, I think if Kenny Schweitzer stays healthy, he'll be a good one, a real good one. And we're going to be competitive in the East with people we play, I think, this year.
The fortunes of Yukon football rest on the shoulders of Ken Schweitzer, number 12. He took over at quarterback midway through the 1978 season, his freshman year. He then led all Division I AA freshmen in total offense. Schweitzer was largely responsible for putting Yukon in the win column.
We all got a little bit of taste of winning last year. You know, early we knew what it was like to lose, and then we knew how great it was to win, so I think we're going to try to stay on that road.
There's a price to pay.
Yeah, there sure is.
Talk about that.
Well, when you lose 3 or 4 games right off the bat, and then you start winning, it makes you appreciate winning so much more. And
you feel like this program has been turned around here?
Yes, definitely.
Why? Why?
So I can't really explain it. We got a lot of good athletes now, and we're just winning games. We're pulling together. We're working well as a team. I think that's the key right there.
One must constantly keep in mind that sophomores are going to be playing an awful lot of football for UConn in 1979. Therefore, the UConn coaching staff spends hours going over the basics.
Go! Hit up! Ah, good, Kenny. Kenny, careful on your first step. You don't look down and try to look up. Now you get your head bobbing, and once it's down, it's tough to recover on the run. Come off right now, all right? Come off right now. Go, stop. Need a little more of a step, Mike. Okay, a little more of a step. Get yourselves going.
We want to go out and win a few more games. That's our goal. Well, we want to make it to the NCAA playoffs. We want that kind of season this year.
What about yourself? What kind of goals have you set for yourself?
Well, me, I want to go out and get 1,000 yards. You know, I think the Lions capable of doing it now. We got a lot of depth. You know, and the team's working together. We look good.
Coach Nadzak's defense has come around faster than the offense. Linebacker Dewey Raymond believes his unit has arrived.
I think we're a good unit. We're playing together well now. The secondary is definitely calling together and running to the ball together. And the line is young, but they're there.
What are your problems? Where do you want to improve?
Right now, I honestly don't see a problem, to tell you the truth. I think we're a pretty well stable unit.
What goals have you set for yourself and for your defensive unit?
Well, defensive unit, I'd like to see every game a shutout. That would be the ultimate goal, to tell you the truth. But, you know, keep the opponent under, you know, a touchdown or so, I think. And for myself, I always put myself in the highest goal, and I think, you know, as high as you can get for an individual player, which would be All-American, I guess, you know. That would be it.
Here in Connecticut, we'll be watching an awfully young UConn team this fall. 11 sophomores may start on offense, and the first 3 games awfully tough. At Army, at Navy, and the annual battle for Connecticut at Yale in the Yale Bowl. 3 games right away on the road. For UConn to have a winning season this year, they're going to have to win at least one of those first 3, and the Huskies are going to be an underdog in all 3. This is Dave Smith of the UConn Huskies in Storrs, Connecticut. Now back to Mizlou Control.
Okay, Dave, and like Dave said, and I know you've heard it before, that if the Huskies get early success, they can have a very successful season throughout, and I think that's true in Connecticut's case. The Scarlet Knights of Rutgers have a lot to match last year when they went to a bowl, and we'll check them out right after we pause for these messages.
The 69 Mets belong to a very special circle. The Schaefer Circle.
Charles at third, he's got it over to second, back to first and a third, but Shamke takes it out. It's a double play.
At Schaefer, we brew our beer to taste great every time.
More Schaefer. AG's buying. Again? How about last year? You know, guys, we haven't lost it. No, sir. The amazing Mets are still, amazing. Amazing.
So come into the Schaefer Circle.
Thursday the 1st, 7:30 a.m. Man in mirror looks old. Gray hair has got to go. Used Grecian formula for the first time. Looks like water. No mess. Tuesday the 6th, gray hair slowly disappearing. Monday the 12th, more gray gone. Nobody noticing. Sunday the 18th, hair looks perfectly natural. Feels healthy too. Wife likes touch of gray I left around the sides. Boss says I look great. Asks if I've lost weight. Fact, without all that gray, I look like myself again. Grecian formula, liquid and cream.
With their first trip to a bowl game behind them, the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers look to another successful season on the banks of the Raritan. The reason could be place kicker Ken Startzel and a strong defensive front. Our own Don Tollefson is with head coach Frank Burns at the Petty School in Hightstown.
Howard, Rutgers went 9-3 in 1978, and they closed out the season with a very respectable showing against powerhouse Arizona State in the first ever Garden State Bowl. This year, Frank Burns, your schedule includes Penn State again, the University of Tennessee, and I guess one of the problems is that everybody knows Rutgers is a good team and the expectations of opponents are higher.
Well, Don, I'm happy if they do know we're a good football team, because I do think we play good football, and I think we'll be very competitive this season.
Do you think, though, that after a while people begin to say, now, wait a minute, maybe we didn't think Rutgers were as tough as they are, and now we really got to prepare for them a lot more? Does your reputation make it tougher each year to keep winning?
Well, I think the more you win, the tougher it is to win. There's no doubt about that. But, again, I'm very happy that people now consider us to be a respectable opponent.
You had a little bit of a shift in your quarterback situation here at training camp. Tell us what went on and what the outlook is for the season there.
Okay, we had Bobby Herring was our first-team quarterback last year, and unfortunately he had a fairly severe back injury which forced him to quit the football team. However, Eddie McMichael is doing a great job for us. He's had a lot of experience. I think he's a very fine athlete, and I'm sure he's going to lead the team very well.
We focused our Mizlou cameras in on a couple of your running backs, and most teams feel fortunate to get one good back. You're getting two in Lester Johnson and Ted Blackwell. Tell us a little bit about them.
Well, we're kind of happy to have those two young people. They're both juniors, and they played a lot of football for us. Lester Johnson played a great deal as a freshman. Last year he had several injuries and did not play too much. However, Ted Blackwell came into his own in his sophomore year, and they're both young men are ready, and I think they're very strong runners. They both have good speed, and they're very intelligent, have good hands, and will do a real fine job for us.
Whenever you talk to Eastern football coaches, be it Joe Paterno at Penn State or Jackie Sherrill at Pitt or whoever, they all say we're sick and tired of hearing about Eastern football being a second-class citizen. Do you agree?
I have to agree with that. There's no doubt about that. Eastern football is much, much better than many people believe, and I think that's being proven. I think if people will watch closely, and when Eastern teams play out of their area, they seem to do very well.
For many years, a lot of the top talent in the East seemed to filter away down south, out west, both in football, basketball, and other sports. Has that trend begun to be reversed?
I have seen some reverse. They still go away. I wish they all stayed, no doubt about that. But I think more and more, at least in our situation, more and more kids, especially in the state of New Jersey, are staying at home. They realize now that, hey, Rutgers is their state university, and they feel that they should represent their state on the football field. And this has made it a lot easier for us to recruit, without a doubt.
Looking at your defense now, we got some shots of your middle guard. He looks like a stud.
Eddie Stewart. Eddie is, I think, a great football player, and honestly, I would not trade him for anybody in the country. He's got great movement, he's very strong, and he has good size.
The use of a nose guard has become more and more prevalent in college football the last couple of years. Is that something that really grew out of what the pros were doing with a 3-4 alignment?
No, in actuality, I think the pros copied the colleges in that alignment, because colleges have been using the odd alignment for many, many years. In the Oklahoma defense, it was originated, I guess, by Bud Wilkinson at Oklahoma, and it's been used for many years.
Let's talk about place kicking. Always something that coaches seem to worry about, but you tell me you got a guy in Ken and Startzel that kind of makes it easy to think about place kicking.
Well, we've got a kid in Startzel, I think a great kicker. He's got an excellent foot. He's capable of distance. He's very accurate. And the thing I like most about him is that nothing seems to bother him. The tightness of a football game, a critical situation, bad weather, nothing ruffles him at all. And I'm very happy to have him. We've had him for 3 years. This is our last season with him.
In big-time college football, kicking has always been important. But now that a school like Rutgers has become an Eastern powerhouse, it is extra important to have a powerhouse kicker like Ken and Startzel. Ken, we had some shots here when you were kicking off, and I always wonder, what does a small place kicker think about as you watch them come gradually upfield towards you?
Well, not too much, other than mostly get out of the way. You know, they don't expect me to tackle, and I don't expect me to tackle. I refused, just to hit and run off the field. So I'm just back there to kind of slow a guy up if he, gets that far, or to trip him up a little bit, whatever I can do to help in that certain situation.
In a game situation, have you ever found yourself the last man between him and the goal line?
Oh, yeah. so far, not to jinx myself, they've gotten by, whether it's just from slowing them up and somebody catching them from behind, or like I said, I just try and hit an ankle and trip them up or get them out of bounds or something. This past preseason was the first time. It happened twice in one game. The first time, a fella got by me, went for the touchdown. I misplayed that. You know, usually you can read it a little bit. And the second time, I got the guy, I drug him down from behind, sort of, and made the play.
There is incredible mental pressure on a kicker, I guess in large part because you have to spend so many idle moments pacing the sidelines.
Right, yeah. There's a lot of worrying times. As a matter of fact, you know, if you didn't go through all that, kicking game would probably be too easy. I think it's probably 85–90% mental out there. Kicking itself isn't all that hard. It's, you know, relaxing you and getting your mind set for the situation and which kick you're going to do and how you've got to kick it and everything. You mostly got to control mentally, you know, what you're going to do out there.
Ken Startzel has made a lot of contributions to the Rutgers football program in the past, but with the likes of Penn State and Tennessee on the 1979 schedule, Rutgers will lead a lot more contributions from the young man to my left. Let's get back to Howard David at Mizlou Network Control.
You know, Leo DeRocha once said that nice guys finish last. Frank Burns is living proof that sometimes nice guys finish near the top of the heap. Our own Bill Schwing of Mizlou Television Network went to Columbia's training camp at the Gunnery School in Washington, Connecticut, and talked to one of the bright young head coaches in college football, Bill Campbell of Columbia.
Coach, can you tell us how your training camp has gone here at the Gunnery School in Connecticut?
Well, it's a little early to tell. I think the team's progress has been excellent. We've got a good blend of seniors, juniors, and sophomores. We've got some aggressive sophomores waiting to take some spots. Our kids are really hitting very well in our early sessions and pads. We're pretty pleased with the way it's going.
What about the offense? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, the offense right now is, it depends on how good our quarterbacks are going to be. Last year's starter was Larry Biondi. He returns. He's an excellent runner, not a great passer. Bobby Conroy, who pushed him a little bit last year before the injury, is also in the picture. I think a lot of it will depend on how these two young men come through. Our sophomores and running back, I think, will be critical to us, too. Joe Cabrera and Greg Nabhan, Jim Pritchard, etc., will be battling Joe Chula, who was last year's starter, for a job. I think that we've got some speed there, something we haven't had the last few years.
How about your defense?
Defensively, I think we're going to be strong in our interior line. Mario Biaggi, Brian O'Hagan, Rico Josephs, Bobby Haskins are all good, big, strong boys and play the run very well. I think our linebacker crew, though inexperienced, are good athletes and can play. I'm worried a little bit about the speed in the secondary, but I think we have enough people there to choose from. This is the first time I really think that we're solid in most of our areas in the last few years.
Coach, how about the Ivy League besides Columbia?
Well, the Ivy League I think is going to be as balanced as you've ever seen it. I think the adage about any given Saturday anybody can beat anybody else is very, very true. I'd say Brown would have to be the preseason favored just on the basis of the size that they have and the number of returning veterans. Yale, of course, is always in the picture. Cornell moved up dramatically last year and could take another step forward. But I think overall it'll be a pretty balanced league.
While Bill Campbell is one of the bright young coaches in the East, certainly Carmen Kozit couldn't be called young. That sly old fox can coach football, I'll tell you that. He's been one of the most successful coaches in the history of the NCAA, but this year could be a rebuilding one.
Well, there are going to be a lot of new faces, Dave, without question, but we do have an experienced backfield returning, of course, with a great running back in Kenny Hill. We have to come up with another quarterback. This is the third straight year we'll have a new face there, and a lot of new people up front on both sides of the ball. But we were able to play some of these guys even though they didn't start a year ago, and we're going to rely on an awful lot of sophomores, but their attitude is super.
What about Kenny Hill now? What role will he play, having come back with all this experience?
Well, certainly he's going to be better for the experience he received last year. We did put an awful lot of pressure on him when the other two tailbacks were injured, and the only way we could get pressure off him was to throw to Spagnola or Krishnak, our fine tight ends. Hopefully this year we'll have a little bit more balance in the backfield and we won't have to call on him as much, but I expect him to have even a better year because he's got this experience under his belt now from the running from the halfback spot. The year before he was a wingback.
Watch the Bulldog of Yale. They're going to be tough again this year in the Ivy League. Carmen Koza does a great job. Speaking of great jobs, the Nittany Lions of Penn State, right after these messages.
Frank Mundus belongs to a very special circle, the Schaefer Circle. Because in the war between man and shark, he wins every time. At Schaefer, we brew our beer to taste great every time. Beer after ice-cold beer. So come into the Schaefer Circle.
Foot odor. Get odor eaters. Odor eaters.
Odor Eaters, billions of particles of activated charcoal blended into comfortable cushion-soft insoles. They absorb perspiration and destroy odor for 3 months. I got the Odor Eaters, kid.
Good boy, good boy.
Odor Eaters, regular for street shoes, super tough for sport and work shoes.
Get odor eaters, odor eaters.
The best in the East could very well be Penn State's Nittany Lions. Wes Maley of WLYH in Lancaster, Pennsylvania is very close to that situation.
Thank you, Howard. Since the Penn State Nittany Lions began playing college football back in 1887, one coveted trophy has always eluded the Lions, and that's a national championship. That dream was almost fulfilled last season when Penn State was rated #1 in the nation, until Alabama beat the Lions in the Sugar Bowl, and the Lions finished the season as the 4th-rated college team in the nation. A lot of people have claimed that Penn State was outcoached in the Sugar Bowl, a claim that upsets Penn State coach Joe Paterno.
That question annoys me, to think that our coaches have done a superb job through the year. They're the greatest staff of coaches anybody could have. We've been able to keep them together, and they've done a superior job in every way.
Okay.
You lose 2 games in 2 years, somebody's doing some coaching in the league we're in, so I don't particularly like the question.
This year, rebuilding is the Nittany Lions' biggest challenge, with only 9 starters, 5 on offense and 4 on defense. Returning this year, Joe Paterno and his staff have their work cut out for them. A major task is the replacement of All-American quarterback Chuck Fusina. Tabbed for that job is Dale Tate, a junior. Tate played briefly in 1 game last fall before breaking his collarbone. He sat out the entire 1977 season with a broken hand. Tate says he's a different kind of quarterback than Chuck Fusina was.
Well, Chuck was more of a drop-back quarterback, and his style of leadership was more of a direct approach. And as far as play development and rollouts were more controlled, less run-oriented. And I think that this year that they will be more run-oriented. Like rollout passes are going to be 50-50 run instead of 70-30, pass.
Back this season for the Nittany Lions is running back Matt Suey. Suey is 6 feet tall, weighs 212 pounds, and he's entering his 4th season as a regular starting back for the Lions. The All-American talked about this season.
I think mostly the biggest change will probably be a lot more running, and the running will complement, or the pass will complement the running, whereas last year was a little different. The run will probably dominate the game a lot more. We're probably running for the first 3 downs and maybe passing on the 3rd one, or passing where we have to, or passing to get the first down. Where last year we used the pass to be our most effective weapon.
Another Nittany Lion running back expected to see a lot of action this season is junior tailback Booker Moore. Booker ranks second on last year's team in rushing and fourth in receiving. And he says he's looking for the big plays this year.
Yes, I'm trying to be a little more elusive this year. You know, I'm going to try to make some more big plays. You know, more than last year. Because I think, you know, if anything, our offense lacked last year was big plays.
Another probable starter for the Nittany Lions this season will be tight end Brad Scoville, who last season caught 14 passes for 205 yards and 1 touchdown. He talks about the offense in the coming season.
You're going to see a different style, though. We're going to be a little more wide open, different kind of running game, option game, sprint out passing game, things like that. Instead of, like, with Chuck, we had to drop back because he wasn't a real good runner. But the quarterbacks that we have now are decent runners, so we're going to use them, you know, to their advantage, give them an option of whether to run or throw the ball.
Over the years, the Penn State Nittany Lions have been known for their outstanding defense. This year, tackles Bruce Clark and Matt Millen returned from a defensive squad which led the nation in rushing defense, 54.5 yards a game, and total defense, 203.9 yards a game. Bruce Clark may be the outstanding college football player in the nation. He won the Lombardi Trophy as the nation's outstanding lineman last year. He finished second to Oklahoma's Greg Roberts for the Outland Trophy. All-American Clark talked about the upcoming season.
Mostly a national championship since it was my last season, and that's something we didn't get last year.
You're looking for a national championship this year?
Yes, I am. That's my first goal.
The Nittany Lion coaching staff and players say the first 4 games of the season will tell the tale. Those 4 games have the Lions going against Rutgers, Texas A&M, Nebraska, and Maryland. All 4 teams played in bowl games last year. Coach Paterno talked about those opponents.
Well, I think they are tough. I think it's a very difficult challenge, the 4 teams we have to play early. All 4 were in bowl games last year, and all of them have a lot of their people back from last year, so it'll be tough. And I think it'll be particularly tough for us because we're going to have to do so much rebuilding.
So we can look for a brand new Penn State Nittany Lion football team this season, one with a brand new offense and one with the hopes of ending the season as the national collegiate champion. I'm Wes Mealy for the Mizlou Television Network.
If track record means anything, look for Penn State to go bowling again at the end of the 1979 season. Let me ask you a question. How would you like to be coaching a football team that plays all 11 games on the schedule on the road? And in that number, Ohio State, Penn State, and Pittsburgh. That's the problems of the Orangemen of Syracuse this year. But I'll tell you something else. WIXT's Dave Cohen has a warning for you.
If you want to see exciting, wide-open, winning college football this fall, don't come to Syracuse. Repeat, do not come to Syracuse. Nobody will be home. After 71 seasons, ancient Archbold Stadium was finally retired. Demolished, in fact, first by the fans, later by the Wreckers Ball. Everybody had memories of the place, and nearly everybody went home with a piece of it. Now, on the very same site, the new 50,000-seat Carrier Dome is rising, but it won't be ready until the start of the 1980 season. So this year, Syracuse will play all 11 games on the road, beginning with a tough test at Ohio State against Earl Bruce's new breed of Buckeyes. And the long road ahead has Syracuse coach Frank Maloney quite concerned.
The thing that scares me the most, a lot of people say, well, you're scared about your defense, and I'm not that afraid of that at all. I'm more afraid of this road possibilities. I think people don't realize that it's much more difficult to play on the road than most people think, and the fact that we have to play 11 times, it really unnerves me and bothers me.
One man who can settle his nerves is quarterback Bill Hurley, who suffered 3 cracked ribs in the first drive of the first game last year. Syracuse promptly lost its first 4 before Hurley returned to dazzle West Virginia. Buffalo Bill showed why he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country and definitely the most exciting. But in the process, he re-injured his ribs and sat out the rest of the season, electing to come back for a 5th year, a little older and a little wiser.
Well, I don't think there's any way you can change your style. I've played that way for so long now. I'm going to be maybe a hair more cautious when it comes to going out of bounds. I think the coaches want me to do that, and I think to prolong my season, I shouldn't do that.
Joining Hurley in the backfield is speedy Joe Morris, the only 1,000-yard freshman in Syracuse history, and well on his way to breaking all of Larry Zonka's career records. Almost forgotten a year ago was Art Monk, a Chuck Foreman-type back who can run the ball and catch it coming out of the backfield, if there's someone to throw it.
I did feel kind of lost. I really didn't get the ball as much, and I really wasn't doing too much. I wasn't really too happy.
Defensively, plays like this one were few and far between, as Syracuse surrendered nearly 400 yards and 27 points per game. One man who could not be faulted, though, was middle linebacker Jim Collins, an honorable mention All-America. He led the team in tackles and assists. If he gets any help this year, Syracuse may finally be able to knock off the likes of Pitt and Penn State.
As far as total depth, we don't have quite the depth of those two teams. I think anybody else in the East we compare very favorably with. So those are the two that we really got to catch, and I think we've narrowed the gap down quite a bit. I'm interested to see how Penn State's going to be with a new quarterback this year. That's a very difficult position to fill.
20 years ago, the late Ernie Davis ran all over this lot as he scored touchdown after touchdown to lead Ben Schwartzwalder's 1959 team to a 10-0 regular season record and a victory over Texas in the Cotton Bowl. This time around, the Orangemen would like to beat a Pittsburgh or a Penn State and, more importantly, post a winning season. I'm Dave Cohen in Syracuse, New York.
It's a tough schedule for Syracuse this year. Coming up, the Black Knights of the Hudson, Army, right after we pause for these messages.
Carmine Abatello belongs to a very special circle, the Schaefer Circle. Because if there's an inch of daylight, he can find it every time. At Schaefer, we brew our beer to taste great every time.
Carmine, who tonight won the Daily Double, the feature, the 8th, the 9th, and the check.
All right. So come into the Schaefer Circle.
I told you I don't want you living with roaches. Now I'm going to show you how to kill roaches where you don't want to spray, like around food and dishes. Get yourself decon roach traps. No poisons and no spraying. Roaches get trapped inside and wham, they're dead. When the trap's filled, throw it out. Power, but no poison. I think they're beautiful, especially since your picture's on the box. Decon roach traps, more power to you.
Davis and Blanchard, Dawkins and Blake, some of the names out of the past at Army. This year's edition is looked into by Dean Darling up at West Point.
Thank you, Howard. The setting is Mikey Stadium, West Point, New York, and we're just 1 week away from the Army Cadets opening game season against the University of Connecticut Huskies. I'm with Coach Lou Saban. And Coach Lou Saban, what's your prognosis for the early part of the schedule, this 1979 season?
Well, I have none. Actually, all I know is that we're going to do the best we possibly can. I'm not much for predictions. We have a very young football team that has potential. I'm sure they're going to do their best, and it's going to be an exciting football year.
Now, we're adding new dimensions this year to the Army football program. First of all, let's talk about the offense, the Veer offense. How did you incorporate that in the spring practice in this early fall season?
Well, actually, the Veer is a very small part of our football. We still have the pass and we have the power offense, which I've been using for years. But the Veer does help us to a great degree, and that we can go ahead and give it some variety. And I think for the type of football team we have, whereby we don't have great size, I think the Veer will be very much apply.
And the defensive system has changed somewhat. You're going to a 3-0 defense this year. You've moved your big guy, George Mays, from the middle guard position over to defensive tackle. How will he help the defense, and what do you incorporate in that 3-0 defense?
Well, basically, we're trying to keep George Mays alive. We put him on the nose of the center. He'll get blocked from both sides, and he is too valuable to our football team. Likewise, we think that Kevin Dodson can help us at the nose position, which will give us more flexibility. But the 30 defense, there's nothing new about it. It's been used for years and years by most college football teams. It still comes back to the type of basic personnel that we have. I think that we have adequate personnel. We should get better as the year goes along.
And, Coach, what about your young plebes coming in the early camp this year?
Well, basically, you can't tell too much about them. We see some fine young prospects, which we think will be of great help to us in the future. I think about the middle of the season, they should give us the help that we need.
And how's the enthusiasm been in the early camp?
Well, it's been great. We have no complaints. They want to win. We do, too, and I think that the entire Army operation and administration would like to see us win. It's going to be an exciting football year for us, and we look forward to it.
The 69 Mets belong to a very special circle. The Schaefer Circle.
Charles at third. He's got it over to second. Back to first and a third, but Shamsky takes it out. It's a double play.
At Schaefer, we brew our beer to taste great every time.
More Schaefer. AG's buying. Again? How about last year? You know, guys, we haven't lost it. No, sir. The amazing Mets are still, amazing. Amazing.
So come into the Schaefer Circle.
Thursday the 1st, 7:30 a.m. Man in mirror looks old. Gray hair has got to go. Used Grecian formula for the first time. Looks like water. No mess. Tuesday the 6th, gray hair slowly disappearing. Monday the 12th, more gray gone. Nobody noticing. Sunday the 18th, hair looks perfectly natural. Feels healthy too. Wife likes touch of gray I left around the sides. Boss says I look great. Asks if I've lost weight. Fact, without all that gray, I look like myself again. Grecian formula, liquid and cream.
Our thanks to all of our reporters in the field, and on behalf of my colleague Don Tollefson, this is Howard David and Mizlou Television Network Control, asking you to go out and support your favorite college football team this fall. Thanks for watching. Eastern College Football Preview 1979, the Mizlou Television Network's in-depth look at the top teams in the East. Eastern College Football Preview has been brought to you by the F&M Schaefer Brewing Company, brewers of Schaefer beer. Come into the Schaefer Circle.